Noel Orsa, me lo collegare.
English.
Ecco.
I speak English.
In English, fantastic. Okay.
In English.
Perfect.
Okay, we are
Please.
3 persons for the Via Charlemagne. I begin with activities of the Via Charlemagne the last 2 years. And after Jean-Pierre Losato-Giotard, the president of the scientific committee, explained the new tendency of the macro patrimoine cultural, and also the implication of our route in the slow tourism and for the session of the patrimoine cultural. And after Caterina Zadra explains the road number 2, La Via Carolingia, that is the road of the coronation of Charlemagne. Okay, I begin. I have 4 minutes and 14 seconds to explain that. The activities. We are active at the moment in 5 countries, also Spain, France, Italy, Belgium, Germany, Luxembourg. I begin the activity in Spain. In Spain, with our Spanish section is very active. We have do an identification of the seat interesting in the region of Navarra, also Asturia, and also Aragon. A big manifestation was the mass of coronation of the Basilica of Roncesvalles, with the Archbishop and the bishops also, and the military authorities, also with the prior of the Basilica. And we have also an activity in the meeting in Gijon, in Asturia, for a meeting of our administration board, and also to visit there in Asturias the church there in the pre-Carolingian style. And interesting for us because Asturia was a territory was allied with Charlemagne before, with the king of Asturia. We have also a meeting in Roncesvalles for all the movement of Spain, of the European movement, I say, of Spain, yeah? And that is a general meeting there in Roncesvalles, Roncevaux. An activity is also organized, a walk on the way of Santiago way, from Roncesvalles to Zubiri, and with the participation of the core of Paderborn, it's a German city, very important also for Charlemagne. And we have also a realization of 2 articles of 2 page, full page, in a very well-known review, National Geographic, in German language. One is about Roland's story, and the second was in the possibility to trace in Champagne and in Picardy. I can no more see anything, but I hope I am online.
Yes, you are online. I confirm.
Okay.
Well, we just have an interference. I don't
Yeah,
know if
no
it was
more,
an hacker or something similar.
Okay. And what is we are preparing of Charlemagne the circuit in the Pyrenees also at the moment. Okay, that is for Spain. After we are in the French part, a meeting, European meeting with young people, children from college of 6 European cities in the Ardennes to remember the past and envisioning the future. And that is a program of Europe for Citizens. And we have seen the trace of the war German French War, 1870, and First World War and Second World War. That is that was the aim of this meeting. We have also an action, two performances of storyteller about the story of Rinaldo in the Ardennes also, okay, that was a big success with the publicum. We have also an action in the Erasmus program about integration program, inclusion program about young people. They are coming from Afghanistan and Guinea to explain them what is the big moment of the city of Reims we are living at the moment. That is an integration program. Okay, that is for the French activity. In Belgium and Luxembourg and Germany, we are building a pass for peatones, trans-border pass for the young people. And we are doing that with 4 countries, that is Belgium, Germany, Luxembourg, and France, in the Ardennes Eifel Massif at the moment. And after, we are doing a film about this work. We have done also a kite flight, c'est cerf-volant, animation, with people of a town of Germany and also a town of France. That is Attigny, the capital of Charlemagne in France, in Ardennes, and Enger, that is in Saxony, in Basque Saxony, in Germany. And that was the capital of Widukind, the chief of the Saxon. And we have that was the enemy of Charlemagne, but we have done reconciliation, so work with this kite flight. We are also preparing at the border with Switzerland, Switzera, cross-border animation also, with horses, trains, storytellers, bicycle, in the program Interreg. Okay, that is now a force in Germany. We have made an animation from the Basilica of Charlemagne with our member there, and after discussion in a room. In Italy, we have made the General Assembly of our association in Rome, and also a meeting of the scientific committee with many people here in La Sapienza. And that was also the possibility to prepare in an inter-university agreement. At the moment, we are doing that between Sapienza and the University of Reims and University of Saragossa in Spain. The four last point is the coordination of the 11th European Partnership Project and participate also at 4 others in the Erasmus program Plus and in the Europe for Citizens program for the 2 years ago and the next 2 years. Yeah, and we have 3 new ones are filed awaiting a response at the moment. 8, we can say also that we have an opera. There is possible to use him for young people as a French-German opera done from Eric Dalazana, a member of our association. And the last but not the least action is one of our members is doing a comic about a story of a legend of Charlemagne, that is the legend of Rinaldo. Voilà. I'm finished with my part, and I can now give the word to Jean-Pierre Losato. Thank you.
Merci, merci Noël. Donc voilà, c'est pour Jean-Pierre Losato.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour.
M'entendez bien là? Oui?
Oui, tout va bien.
Caro Alberto, io dunque vi ringrazio molto per l'invito di questo meeting molto interessante e da un'altra parte dico good afternoon for all people who participant in English. Non so. Ma come siamo in Italia, parlerò in italiano. E dunque il mio obiettivo è di esponere diciamo le cose pratiche che abbiamo fatto, perché come si sa gli obiettivi sono numerosi e la particolarità di queste strade, soprattutto della via Carlo Magno, è di rintracciare parecchie attività. Allora, per far capire questo, farò soltanto una piccola visione di slide, 2 o 3 slide, non complicate. Vediamo dove sono questi slide. Ecco. Eccoli qua. Dunque, eccoci. Si vedono?
Non al momento. Vediamo il tuo computer, però non si sono ancora aperte le slide. Se vuoi cliccare,
ho capito.
devi cliccare su via Charlemagne, impatti locali.
Sì, ho capito. Va bene. Allora, lasciamo perdere. Mi sentite lo stesso?
Ti sentiamo molto bene, però vediamo uno schermo fisso sul desktop.
D'accordo, ho capito. Allora, lasciamo perdere perché no. Ecco. Eccoci. No, lascio perdere perché sono 2 o 3 slide semplicissimi. Allora, ecco, volevo soltanto ricordare che tra le nostre esperienze pratiche che abbiamo fatto durante gli ultimi anni, abbiamo soprattutto con il comitato scientifico deciso di avere diciamo due parti che vanno ad essere ritracciate. La prima parte del comitato scientifico fu di avere un network di università e di gente che sono tutti legati alla ricerca, diciamo, di Carlo Magno. E come ha detto Noël prima, abbiamo rintracciato in Francia l'Università di Reims, una. Poi l'Università di Pau, che è nei Pirenei. Questa è la mia università, che è la Sorbonne, sicuro. Poi al di là, in Germania, abbiamo Aix-la-Chapelle, Aachen. E al di là della Germania abbiamo anche in Spagna, Saragozza, ma ci saranno anche altre università, nelle Asturie per esempio, che hanno deciso di seguirci. E in Italia sicuramente la Sapienza, con la quale sono molto legato da tanti anni, perché sono stato, come dire, un socio associato parecchie volte con l'Università di Roma, la Sapienza, da 30 anni già. E dunque, con la Sapienza abbiamo deciso di mettere a punto, forse l'anno prossimo, perché come si sa con la Covid non abbiamo potuto, di mettere a punto un grande evento che va a ricordare che Carlo Magno fu incoronato impero a Roma nell'anno 800. E qui siamo lì per fare questa cosa lì, ma però per il momento non è stato possibile. Inoltre, con tutte queste università abbiamo 2 obiettivi. Il primo obiettivo è che ci sono colleghi che lavorano su Carlo Magno, diciamo direttamente o indirettamente. E per noi la cosa interessante è di sapere quali sono qual è l'eredità di Carlo Magno in pratica, che cosa ha lasciato, che cosa abbiamo oggi. Per esempio, se abbiamo un forte militare del Carlo Magno, se abbiamo una basilica, non so, delle cose molto pratiche per mettere appunto una rete, diciamo, dell'eredità di Carlo Magno su questa strada. E al di là, il secondo obiettivo è di mettere in pratica, diciamo, il turismo, la conoscenza, tutte queste cose che vanno ad interessare un pubblico che è un pubblico, diciamo, in multiple discipline. E per esempio abbiamo dunque come lavoro ad identificare dei punti territoriali specifici, perché è sicuro che la via Carlo Magno ha tanti chilometri che non è possibile ad un tratto far tutto. E abbiamo soprattutto deciso di come dire, di mirare i borghi, i luoghi, i territori che sono a volte un po' fuori strada, se posso dire. Per esempio, fare degli itinerari culturali che vanno a, come dire, a fare la visita a cavallo, e per quello che abbiamo una rete con la route d'Artagnan, la route d'Artagnan. Facciamo anche delle cose sui fiumi, e poi questi sono itinerari mobili. Però abbiamo anche come obiettivo, e già è stato fatto, di mettere a punto forum, incontri, forse un giorno festival, in punti particolari che sono legati a tutte le altre pratiche di mobilità. E per dire che così sono obiettivi di andare avanti non soltanto con un comitato scientifico che fa un bel lavoro sociologico, storico, ma anche che ha degli impatti diretti sui territori per far conoscere la cultura europea. E per quello che il comitato scientifico è composto esattamente di colleghi di diversi paesi. Al di là abbiamo pensato anche che la formazione, che fa parte, come si sa, degli obiettivi del Consiglio europeo e anche dell'Istituto Culturale, abbiamo pensato alla formazione. E la formazione, ci sono due tipi di formazione. La formazione tecnica, che già fanno le scuole alberghiere, che si preoccupano della gastronomia, tutto ciò già esiste. E allora noi abbiamo pensato soprattutto che la formazione forse che è un po' più particolare è di spiegare alle guide, diciamo, ai managers della cultura, ai managers del marketing, quali sono i punti importantissimi a far conoscere per valorizzare i territori. E questa formazione lì, che si può fare anche con Erasmus, sicuro, ma è soprattutto una formazione che vogliamo mettere a punto per i responsabili territoriali, per i responsabili istituzionali, perché come in Francia, dove abbiamo, e io in particolare, come lo sapete, l'esperienza del polo di ingegneria del quale ero responsabile, è vero che oggi quando si parla di formazione non è soltanto le formazioni classiche, come si sa, della cucina, dell'albergo, ci sono formazioni non soltanto delle guide, ma anche formazioni rapide, concentrate, sicuro, no tanti anni, ma per, come dire, aumentare la capacità dei manager territoriali a non soltanto far conoscere, ma anche a fare la gestione strategica dei luoghi. È un'ambizione un po' forte, lo so, ma mi sembra che oggi è una cosa importantissima. Ho sentito per esempio prima che ci fu l'intervento del signore che ha parlato delle stazioni termali, per esempio. E per le stazioni termali ha detto che per le stazioni termali era il signor Pierfrancesco che ha parlato di questo, no? E ha detto che ci sono anche delle stazioni termali dei problemi. Voglio dire soltanto questo, che nelle stazioni termali, tra virgolette, ci sono anche dei luoghi dove nel tempo di Carlo Magno si andava a fare il bagno, un termalismo un po' particolare. È molto interessante di far conoscere queste cose lì. Per dire che le nostre esperienze oggi, a questo punto che fra poco saremo nel terzo anno, abbiamo fatto parecchie cose. È vero che non abbiamo fatto tutto, ma le nostre esperienze stanno dimostrando che con passione, dico sempre la stessa cosa, se non si fa con passione la cosa, non si va avanti. Un po' di passione ci vuole, ma dopodiché ci vuole anche, come dire, delle esperienze a mettere in pratica. Dunque, come lo diceva Noel, i nostri obiettivi oggi sono di allargare, sempre allargare, se fosse possibile, i partner. E parlando dei partner, non so se Noel ha parlato della Romania, che è andato lui in Romania, e abbiamo avuto una bella novità, Noel, una novità che la Romania, il presidente della Romania ha deciso di diventare partner. È una cosa fantastica di pensare a questo. Da poco tempo lo sappiamo. E dunque allarghiamo i partner con i politici, va bene, ma anche con partner privati. E mi sono accorto di una cosa molto interessante, che quando una route come la via Carlo Magno, anche altre route, quando una route comincia a oltrepassare, diciamo, un certo punto, dove questa route comincia a avere, come dire, una conoscenza generale, quando i partner sono più numerosi, per esempio istituzionali, privati, più si va, più partner abbiamo, più gli altri partner vogliono venire. È una cosa molto interessante di sapere che quando si arriva a un certo punto che la gente comincia a pensare, ma è molto interessante, si fa questo, allora tutte le cose vanno avanti. Per dire che ora, per il prossimo, diciamo, il prossimo triennale, siamo dunque su questa strada e pensiamo inoltre di pensare alle nuove tendenze, perché le nuove tendenze, già è stato detto, penso, nella giornata, le nuove tendenze sono veramente culturali. Si dice che la cultura, è un stimolante, è un starter, ma la cultura va bene, diventa veramente operativa quando la cultura, quando il visitatore va sul posto, che sta, come dire, visitando, che va a conoscere il luogo, che partecipa al luogo, e questo perché anche se il digitale si apporta molte cose, il digitale è molto interessante all'inizio, anche per fare la visita, ma la cosa più importante è il contatto diretto con il territorio. Finalmente, nelle tendenze nuove, ma che già esistono da tempo, è lo slow turismo, abbiamo le tendenze culturali sicuro, abbiamo anche la tendenza di dire che dobbiamo avere, come dire, mettere a punto mobilità e punti di riferimenti, tutte queste cose lì che saranno soprattutto i nostri obiettivi per gli anni che stanno ad arrivare fra poco. Ecco, cari amici, Alberto, lascio adesso la parola a Caterina Sadra che va a completare il nostro discorso.
Grazie Jean-Pierre, è difficile far passare come dire, gli applausi in videoconferenza, però grazie per il tuo intervento molto esaustivo e interessante. E adesso ho il piacere di conoscere Caterina, che appunto per la prima
Buonasera
volta...
a tutti.
Buonasera, so che è molto attiva a Novara e dintorni, mi dicono,
Esatto.
sul marketing turistico, e che
Esatto.
ha raggiunto la via Charlemagne per appunto con delle idee anche di promuovere dei prodotti turistici e devo dire poi la via Charlemagne ha anche un percorso italiano piuttosto significativo che la porta fino a Roma, però non so esattamente da dove, se passa anche da Novara,
Esatto.
se ci può dire
allora mi presento
Grazie.
Esatto, grazie. No, noi ci siamo conosciuti al Consiglio d'Europa, più volte ci siamo incrociati brevemente nei corridoi, Faccio parte della CT, che è la Confederazione Internazionale dei Lavoratori Intellettuali, nata a Parigi nel 1920, era l'ex sindacato dei poeti e dei giornalisti, per cui Poetico, una associazione che siede nel Consiglio d'Europa nella parte delle ONG, della quale fa parte anche Orsat, per quello è la nostra conoscenza parte da lì. Io ho diciamo come attività qui a Novara, sono titolare del tour operator più piccolo d'Italia, una realtà che si occupa di trekking e turismo green sostanzialmente. 15 anni fa ho coniato il termine slow food con la T finale, turismo lento e contemplativo, e faccio parte dell'Università del Piemonte Orientale, sono direttrice dei Pro Tour, che è diciamo la parte del turismo responsabile. Parto presentando, quindi ringrazio Noele e ringrazio il professor Losato, perché parto col presentare l'itinerario carolingio, che è l'itinerario imperiale di Carlo Magno, praticamente il suo viaggio per essere incoronato poi a Roma il 25 dicembre dell'800. L'itinerario diciamo parte da Rouen, passa dal Belgio, dalla Germania, ha tutto un tratto molto interessante, passa da Worms ad esempio, che è la grande città imperiale cattolica, passa dall'Alsazia, quindi Colmar, Strasburgo e Mulhouse, territori che noi tutti conosciamo perché sono i territori che sono vicini al Consiglio d'Europa, insomma tutti noi sentiamo casa, insomma, quel territorio ormai. Si passa dalla Svizzera, quindi con Basilea, Berna, Lugano, poi si passa attraverso i laghi di Lecco, Como, le città di Bergamo e Brescia, si arriva a Ravenna, che è una tappa importante. Altra tappa importante è Farfa con l'abbazia imperiale, e ricordo che le abbazie erano per Carlo Magno importantissime, perché lui è quello che attraverso la rete di abbazie ha consentito una alleanza strategica fra l'impero e il papato, quindi è stata quella la sua arma per assestare tutto un territorio al potere imperiale, per poi arrivare a Roma, dove il 25 dicembre dell'800 viene incoronato. Da lì il termine di Sacro Romano Impero. Questo itinerario devo dire che mi affascina. Innanzitutto io sono entrata in contatto appunto attraverso Noel, mi occupo di itinerari proprio a piedi sostanzialmente, e da curiosa ho iniziato a fare un po' delle ricerche. Credo che sia la quintessenza anche della nascita dell'Europa, perché si trasforma, diciamo, parte dal diritto, dal quadro di diritto romano, quindi sulla base di quel quadro di diritto si unifica tutto un territorio, crea una moneta unica, che sono le cose che sono successe anche in Europa, e praticamente è una aggregazione di territori simili per contrastare il scusate, ok, ho messo la sveglia. Per contrastare i territori che erano proprio in contrasto, diciamo, quindi un arroccamento europeo vasto per permettere una difesa maggiore rispetto ad altri territori. Volevo dire un paio di cose. Praticamente la figura di Carlo Magno a livello territoriale. Allora, se si sente troppo, aspettate che la spengo.
Prego.
Non riesco.
Prego, non...
Vabbè. Praticamente Carlo Magno è una figura che ricordiamo ed è profondamente, come dire, ha radici storiche profonde, lo ricordiamo ancora oggi, ed è un motivo di viaggio per una serie di attività anche territoriali, per cui tours sia a piedi che culturali attraverso un territorio vastissimo. Questo è il secondo itinerario che praticamente ha in relazione con l'itinerario di Carlo Magno, ma ce ne sono in elaborazione altri 3, quindi in realtà c'è una vastissima capacità di approfondimento, di ricerca. Dietro a questi itinerari c'è tantissimo lavoro di tante persone e credo che sia come si chiama? La bellezza di un itinerario del genere è anche poter lavorare fra paesi diversi con un livello molto alto di conoscenze. Ecco, la parte della formazione io la trovo interessantissima. Credo Carlo Magno, ad esempio, quello che fondò all'epoca è stata l'Accademia Palatina, per esempio, un senato di saggi. Qui credo che la formazione, sia dal punto di vista delle attività territoriali, sia dal punto di vista delle istituzioni, sia dal punto di vista di progetti come questo, la formazione, le competenze sono quelle che, ne abbiamo parlato tutto il giorno, sono stata collegata dall'inizio. Ecco, la differenza forse con un assetto precedente al Covid potrebbe essere l'importanza delle competenze dell'alta formazione, ma anche la governance, quindi le governance territoriali. Queste, secondo me, sono le differenze. Una cosa che non ho sentito da questa mattina è l'importanza di tutto quello che sono le polizze assicurative, diciamo in un periodo così, perché per le strutture che vanno a caricarsi la responsabilità del trasporto persone in periodi non solo di terrorismo, che abbiamo passato anche quello come operatori turistici, ma anche sulla sicurezza legata appunto alla sanità, credo che quella potrebbe essere diciamo una cosa da affrontare anche a livello territoriale, non lasciarla ai singoli elementi, quindi alla singola agenzia, al singolo albergo. Dovrebbe esserci, come ho sentito questa mattina, un'aggregazione territoriale. Ecco, questo tipo di itinerari, secondo me, ha proprio quel lavoro lì di connettere territori diversi in modo molto, molto stretto e di lavorare fra paesi diversi anche da lontano, ma su un obiettivo comune. Io vi saluto, vi ringrazio e niente, buon lavoro a tutti.
Grazie, grazie anche.
Tempo. Comunque, ecco, lo spirito è quello di voler mantenere, diciamo, il filo diretto con chi ci segue, cercando però di dare un servizio il più attinente possibile al programma che è stato dato. Per il resto, ecco, passerei la parola a Caroline.
Bene, vedo Carolina Clark. Hello, Carolina. Normally you will speak in English.
Hello, buongiorno.
Buongiorno, ciao. You can choose between Italian and English, of course.
English. This time will be English. So you can hear me well? You can see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alberto and Sabrina and all the organizers for the invitation. And I would also like to congratulate you for this very nice initiative. As you mentioned before, I'm going to be presenting and speaking about how to create cultural roots according to the methodology of the Council of Europe and about the evaluation cycle. So I have a presentation that I would like to share with you. I hope it's going to work. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes. Yes, it's visible. We can see it.
Yeah. Yes?
Yes,
Perfect.
I confirm.
Okay. So I don't want to repeat a lot what Mr. Dominioni has said before, but it's always a good idea to refresh a bit some contents. And the basis for our methodology is this definition of cultural roots from developed by the Council of Europe Committee of Ministers Resolution 66 from the year 2013. And we need to bear in mind that when we talk about the cultural roots of the Council of Europe, we are not only referring to a pathway that goes from a point A to B. It's more than that. We use this definition in a more conceptual way to refer to a cooperation project. And this cooperation project, if we try to somehow decompose this definition, we can see that it's going to be a cooperation project that is going to have a cultural, educational, heritage, and tourism component, which will be reflected in different activities implemented by the route. That is going to be making reference to the theme that is going to be evoked throughout the route, which can be a phenomenon, a figure, or a historic route. That is going to have a transnational dimension, which means that there are going to be at least 3 countries, European countries involved. And the last component is the common European values that are going to be communicated and enhanced through this cultural route. It's important when we talk about the cultural roots of the Council of Europe also to make a reference to this resolution number 67. Both of them, the one that I mentioned before and this one, are our reference texts where everybody can find the information about the criteria for certification of the cultural root of the Council of Europe. So here we can see that we have 3 main rules for the award of this certification. There is a list of eligibility criteria for themes. There is a list of priority field of actions, and then a list of criteria for networks. As Mr. Dominioni explained before, when we talk about awarding the certification to a cultural route, we have to consider that it's going to be awarded to a project that already complies with these 3 criteria. The certification is not given to projects that are under development, but to projects that have already reached at least this minimum criteria that I'm going to explain now. It is important also to remember what has been mentioned already before by Mr. Dominioni, by Alberto and Sabrina as well, that cultural roots are grassroots projects. So they are born from the idea of local or regional actors, institutions that decide to promote a specific theme and get together to develop this project. And at the European Institute of Cultural Roots, we are all the time in contact with different stakeholders and actors that come to us and tell us, we are working on a development of a cultural route. What shall we do? How can we obtain the certification? So today, what I would like to present briefly is what we could summarize as the methodology, which looks simple in only 5 steps, but in practice, we know that it's much more complex than this, and that these different steps do not necessarily go in this order, but is mainly things that will happen at the same time as in the process of creating this route and defining the different aspects to compose the route. And then we're going to move to the evaluation cycle and the different steps to obtain the certification. So if we focus on these 5 steps for the creation of the cultural route, we are going to start by the definition of a theme. Mr. Dominioni already talked about the different thematic clusters. The program has been growing for more than 30 years. So the different certified routes nowadays, they cover very different themes. And of course, this is a list that is not exhaustive, and every year we are receiving new applications. So the list of themes is growing and growing. As Mr. Dominioni already mentioned today, we received 16 applications this year for the certification cycle, and we are in regular contacts with more than 60, 70 other projects that are being developed. So the themes can be very, very various. Here we can see just some examples. What is important for the theme is that when we want to create a cultural route, we will have to consider specific criteria. The theme has to be well defined, but in particular, we need to focus on how this theme is representative of European values. When we talk about European values, we talk about human rights, democracy, the rule of law, but also respect, diversity, intercultural dialogue, etc. So this is a very important aspect for a cultural route to be certified by the Council of Europe. We need to also take into consideration that there has to be at least 3 countries, European countries involved. And when we say European countries, we need to remember that the Council of Europe has 47 member states. And of course, there need to be at least 3 members that are members of the Council of Europe, but many routes have also members in even other continents. We have routes with members in Africa, in Latin America, North America, even in Asia. Another important aspect of the definition of the theme is that it has to be researched by a multidisciplinary and international group of experts. So this will ensure that the route has a solid scientific and academic background. And this is very much in line with the requirement of having a scientific committee that has to be established by the route, and that is going to be composed by different academics, experts, and professionals from different disciplines, and also representing the different countries that are involved in the route. And this scientific dimension of the route is very important because the scientific committee should be able to establish clear criteria, for example, for the selection of the different members and heritage elements that we're going to include in the route, to develop methodological instruments to collect data, and is overall the one that is going to be responsible for promoting research, innovation, and having a whole approach of the different dimensions of the route, which will help decision making and the definition of the strategy of the route. When we define a theme, we also need to consider that this theme has to be, of course, illustrative of the European memory, history, and heritage, and that has to enable the implementation of different activities that I'm going to present now. So, just to sum up, when we think about developing a cultural route, we should ask ourselves 3 main questions. One is, which is the story that we want to tell to travelers and citizens of Europe? How the theme is manifested in the different countries that are involved in the project, because we need to be able to justify why we decided to include certain countries, and how this theme allows a better understanding of European history and present-day Europe. Once we have worked on this definition of the theme, we will have to select the heritage elements that are going to reflect this theme. Because we know that cultural routes need to be linked also to the territory. So we'll have to select sites, locations, cities, municipalities that are going to be located in the territory and that are going to be linked together to create a narrative. So when we talk about the heritage elements, it's not only tangible, we'll also have this intangible heritage that we are going to connect to tell a story and to develop a narrative that will reflect the theme of the route. The third important criteria for the certification will be to create a European network. Mr. Domioni has already went through the explanation of this aspect. So just to remind you that the cultural routes normally come from the initiative of the population, of the communities, different stakeholders that decide to get together and develop this project. But at some point, they will need to establish a legal body that will be responsible for the management of this route. So this can take the form of an association or a federation of associations that needs to be registered in one of the countries that are members of the route, that will bring together the different members and that will have to function according to a democratic governance system, which means that there will be shared responsibilities and tasks, and also the possibility to participate in the different activities and decision making for all of the members of the route. And last, it is important that the network is self-financed, which means it has to be able to generate its own sources of funding. We know from the practice that once a route is certified, there are many chances of applying to European funding and receiving funding. But we have to keep in mind that receiving the certification does not entail any financial contribution from the European Institute of Cultural Routes nor the Council of Europe. So each cultural route has to be able to generate its own sources of funding. Just to show you some examples of how this works in practice, we have the example of Santiago de Compostela pilgrim routes, which, according to what Mr. Domioni already explained, would be a linear route. So the way we see it in the territory is different linear paths that go towards Santiago de Compostela in Spain. But behind this map, what we see as the legal structure is a federation of different regional and local authorities that got together and that are in charge of the management of this route. We have another example, which is the European route of historic thermal towns, which is an example of a network composed by different municipalities and cities, which are actually the members of the network. So the same points that we see on the map are also the members of this association. And it's also interesting to see how they present themselves in terms of their governance, with a presidency and executive council that is formed by 20 members and it's meeting 4 times per year. They also have a task force, a scientific committee, a communications commission, and of course they organize twice per year a general assembly where all the members get together. So once we spoke about the theme and the network, we have to consider that there is another criteria for certification, which is the priority field of actions. So cultural routes will need to implement different activities in line with these 5 priority field of actions. When we talk about the activities, we have to consider that there will be activities that can be implemented only by the members individually. For example, if there is a cultural association or a museum that is member of a route, they will have already a program of activities that they will implement in line with the theme of the route. But of course, there will be other projects that are going to be implemented by the network as a whole or by a group of members in a coordinated way. So I would like to share with you briefly some examples. The first one is cooperation in research and development. I already mentioned the scientific committee, and I would like to tell you about this incubator project that is being developed by the European Route or Jewish Heritage. It's a very interesting project because here we see a real involvement of the scientific committee in the activities of a route. They have launched a call to somehow invite regional routes that would like to join this route that has already been certified. And then they have done a pre-selection of projects that could be eligible to join the route. And for a period of time, they are assigned some kind of tutor, which is someone representing the scientific committee that is going to accompany them in the development of a strategy of different activities and also to monitor their development during 3 years. And after that, there will be an assessment to decide if they are able to join the network. The second field of action is enhancement of memory, history, and European heritage. And we see here the example of the Cluny sites in Europe, which is called Clunypedia. It's a digital encyclopedia that has been developed by the route in order to provide remote access to different sites of the route by augmented reality, 3D reconstructions, even of buildings and architecture that is no longer existing on the ground. The third one is cultural and educational exchanges for young Europeans. There is a very good example of the cultural route called Réseau Art Nouveau. It's a project that they call Home Alone. And it's a project that was developed in Brussels with a group of students. the idea here was that they worked during a full semester at school with the professors with different disciplines, working always treating the different themes in relation to Art Nouveau. And then during the European Heritage Days weekend, they somehow took over the museum, an Art Nouveau museum located in the city, and they were in charge of welcoming the public. They organized little tours around the neighborhood and also guided visits in the museum and different activities. So we see really a real involvement of young people in the activities of the network and also in coordination with educational institutions. The fourth field of action is contemporary cultural and artistic practice. In this field of action, it is important to promote links between heritage and different artistic expressions. So a very good example is the one called Work It Out. It's a dance event created by the European Route of Industrial Heritage, where they organized this kind of dance contest in industrial heritage sites. And it's a very interesting event because they managed to link heritage, involve educational institutions and involve young people. And it's a project that has been replicated in many different locations of the route. Finally,
C'è un'interruzione audio con l'istituto, con Carolina Clark.
The famous Parmigiano Reggiano cheese.
C'è un piccolo problema di connessione che vediamo di risolvere quanto prima. Vediamo se... Scusa? È uscita, si è sconnessa. Ok, c'è una disconnessione in corso che vediamo di risolvere. Non so se riusciamo a comunicare, forse lei non lo vede perché sta guardando le slide. Si è chiuso totalmente, per cui ora vedo se riesco a comunicare con Carolina. Nel frattempo mando un messaggio a Carolina. Sabrina, se vuoi aggiungere qualcosa.
Sì, no, io direi che questa parte di Carolina era estremamente, era fondamentale, sì, proprio per far capire anche quali sono poi gli step operativi per la creazione degli itinerari. E, ecco, spesso diciamo c'è, come dire, la percezione, no, del ruolo che svolge l'itinerario culturale, che è un ruolo estremamente attivo nella diffusione dei contenuti, ma è anche un ruolo che poi coinvolge tutti gli operatori. È tornata? Scusate, stiamo cercando di vedere se abbiamo risolto questi problemi di connessione.
Hello?
Eccola. Hello? No.
I'm sorry, I think there was a problem with the connection and I got completely disconnected.
Yes, now we can see you again very clearly.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you also see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's
Good,
visible.
I'm sorry. So the last step, which is not the last because it's something that we need to start thinking from the beginning, is creating a common visibility. So when we are working on the development of a cultural route, we need to think of a visibility strategy that is going to identify the cultural route and all its members. And that is going to enable all of the members to communicate the same message, but also to make the audience understand that they belong to a bigger project. So the idea is that, for example, when we use the same logo, we are communicating that we belong to a bigger project, and we are also doing the promotion at the same time for the other partners of the same project. So normally in terms of visibility, cultural routes should have at least a graphic charter, communication materials such as brochures and other publications, maps, and signposting. And just to show you briefly some examples, we have some of the communication tools developed by Via Francigena again, such as the signposting, the use of the logo that we can see on every communication support, pilgrim passports. What you can see here, for example, is the logo of the route that goes together with the certification logo. And this is a logo that is that only certified cultural routes are allowed to use once they receive the certification, are allowed to use, but also they have to use it on every communication support. And then we have different types of communication supports, publications, websites, social media, etc. So Via Francigena, of course, is a very good example of an homogeneous communication strategy. We always see the same use of the logo. They have developed a graphic charter to explain to all the members how to use the logo and the different communication tools. And of course, once a cultural route is certified by the Council of Europe, we'll also need to comply with the visibility guidelines by the Council of Europe, which are referred to the use of the certification logo and the preparation of different communication supports. And now we move quickly to the cultural routes evaluation cycle. Mr. Dominioni already explained a bit. We have every year a cycle that starts in March when we launch the evaluation cycle, and that will finalize in May. And there are two activities that go in parallel during this evaluation or certification cycle. One is the applications for certification, so the new candidates that are willing to obtain the certification. And then there is the regular evaluation of routes that have been already certified. This is the timeline. So it's a long process. It takes almost 1 year. And now I'm going to tell you a bit what happens step by step. As I said before, the European Institute of Cultural Routes is in contact with many candidate projects, so cultural routes that are developing. And what we advise always is to, before submitting an application, to get in contact with the Secretariat of the Enlarged Partial Agreement and of the European Institute of Cultural Routes in order to request the organization of an advisory meeting, which is a very important meeting because it's when candidates can receive advice on their projects, and they can receive feedback on what they have been developing so far, and on things that they should improve before submitting a formal application. These meetings used to take place in Luxembourg, as you can see on the picture. This year we've done many meetings online. And we also suggest to attend different training events. There is a training academy that Mr. Dominioni already mentioned. We also organize training seminars. This year we understood that it's also possible to do this kind of trainings online with a very high participation. We organized a training in June this year, and we had more than 70 people attending. So I think it's a very good opportunity for projects under development to learn about the methodology and how to prepare their applications. So once they have been in contact with the Secretariat and they are ready to submit the application, it's also, of course, a good idea to get informed and to take a look at different materials that provide some background information on how to prepare and how to manage a cultural route. We have this publication, which is available online, and we are now working on a new edition that is going to be published next year. And so when the route is ready to apply, the information is displayed on our website about how to submit the application. Of course, we also contact all our database of candidate projects to inform them. And in order to submit the application, you will receive instructions on how to submit a digital file and also a printed file that has to be sent to the European Institute of Cultural Routes. Once we receive these applications, what we do is, first of all, to check that all the documents that we require have been submitted. And after that, we are going to start with the evaluation procedure. The first part of this procedure is to select an independent expert. We have a pool of experts that have applied in order to be eligible for this task. So we make a selection. There will be one expert selected for each cultural route that is going to be evaluated. And this expert is going to be in charge of reviewing the documents, conducting a field visit, where it's going to have contacts with the management, with different members of the network, and travel to a destination of the route, and to prepare an evaluation report. These evaluation reports are also available on our website in case someone is interested in taking a look at them. And once we receive the results of the independent expert, there will be different steps. The first step will be the review of the results of the report by the IPA Secretariat with the support of the European Institute of Cultural Roots. That is going to prepare recommendations, recommendations that are going to be based not only on the evaluation report, but also on the internal review of the applications received from the routes. These recommendations are going to be submitted to the Bureau of the Enlarged Partial Agreement. This bureau is a small group that represents some members of the Enlarged Partial Agreement, and it gets together in February. This meeting will issue a series of recommendations that then are going to be discussed by the IPA Governing Board in April, when they are going to make the final decision about the certification. As you can see on the pictures on the left, we have an example of bureau meeting. What happens here is that it's a small meeting, and we have auditions with the experts. We have video conference with them, and we discuss the results of the evaluation, ask any questions regarding any doubts we might have about their reports. And then the IPA Governing Board meeting is when all the member states, so the 34 member states representatives, get together. There is an audition of the different candidates and routes and regular evaluation. And finally, the decision regarding the award or the renewal of the certification is going to be made. So here we can see some pictures of what this governing board meeting looks like. It normally takes place in Luxembourg. This year, unfortunately, online, an audition by a candidate route. And then if the result is positive, we will have the
Abbiamo un'altra interruzione di collegamento con Lussemburgo.
And then there is the official certification ceremony that can be organized by.
Scollegato nuovamente, deve avere una connessione. Ecco, vedo Carolina comunque. Carolina, ti sei sconnessa di nuovo. You are not connected anymore. If you can try again. That's it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I'm
now
sorry.
it's
Today
okay.
is not a lucky day because we do video conferences all the time and it has never happened.
You are too charged in Luxembourg, too many conferences.
So just to finalize, this is the example. I was showing you the picture of our colleagues because I know that Mr. Ossa is going to present today. This was the certification of Via Charlemagne during the annual advisory forum. And then the routes can also organize their own certification ceremony where they invite all the members. So in order to go through all this process, we need to submit a list of documents. The information is available on our website. There is a certification form, but then there is also a list of other required documents. So just to finalize, I wanted to remind you about our website where you can find a lot of information. There is a web page dedicated to each of the certified cultural routes. There is a page on resources where you can download different documents. I suggest you take a look at this. And we have monthly newsletters with all the news from the routes, from the program, from the Institute. and another section on training where we're going to publish information about our upcoming trainings next year. So I invite you to take a look. That's it for my presentation. I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm very sorry for the connection problems, and I remain connected in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolina, thank you very much for your speech, for your presentation. It was really interesting, and thank you also for the beautiful images of the PowerPoints, also the PowerPoint presented by Stefano Dominioni, because I think it's important to give the impression to and the idea to the people who would like to present projects, to know what it is to be part of this big family of culture roots. You presented the meetings, you presented the institute, and also the events where the beautiful moment when the culture roots receive the certification, which is always a really, I would say, passionate moment, and when the satisfaction of people who works hardly for years, actually, because a good project, sometimes it takes years to become reality. So thank you for this. Sabrina, I switch back to the Italian language, if it is okay for you, Carolina, and also I know that you have a lot of things to do today. So thank you really very much for your presence, for your participation, for this first academy. Unfortunately, online. I really hope that next time it will be in presence. You can come to Italy, you can come to Lucca, and we can work together to develop the Culture Roots projects. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Caroline.
Bene, torniamo all'italiano.